So growing up, I always had a very simple relationship with money. I would get some cash, maybe a check from my grandparents during the holiday season, and I'd save pretty much all of it. You know, I might spend a little bit of it, but pretty much I'd put all of it into the bank. And my parents always told me, a penny saved is a penny earned. And it's just not smart to put all of your money towards ridiculous consumer products and as seen on TV items. Or is it? Well, I did something different this holiday season, and I spent all of my money. I spent all of my money, I didn't save any of it, and it worked out great for me. Let me explain. I spent it on some ridiculous goods. I spent it on a jacket with solar panels that charges my phone while I'm outside. I spent it on a Snuggie. I spent it on some worthless things, but it worked out for me. But that wasn't all I bought. I also delved into the stock market, which is something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. And I just had to figure out, what company do I want to invest in? And I knew, I had an idea. I want to invest in Supreme. They're a great fashion brand. You know, I see their logo all around my school. They must be making tons of money. And so I went into it and I looked through all the markets for a company called Supreme. Now, it turns out Supreme is not publicly traded, so I couldn't get involved in it, sadly. But I still found another Supreme, one that people aren't very familiar with. It's an Indian plastic piping company, but it did the trick. And I did very well off of that Indian plastic piping company. And so, even though I didn't find the company I was looking for, I still did well with it, and I enjoyed it. See, the way I like to think about the economy is that it's almost like a big bicycle, you know? You've got to keep the wheels moving, you have to keep momentum up, and the economy needs to keep going and growing so that if it hits a hill, it won't grind to a halt. And I think of investing in consumer spending as the grease between the wheels that keeps the whole system moving. And so, one of the reasons why you shouldn't put all your money in the bank is because it's just not worth it anymore. I mean, my parents were the ones that always told me a penny saved is a penny earned. And I can see why. As you can see from this graph, in the 70s and 80s, interest rates were very high. You could put $100 in the bank and expect to make $1 or $2 over a few years, or however long you had money in the bank, depending on a bunch of other different factors. But pretty much the point is, interest rates were high, so it was more worth it to put money in the bank. Well, now, if you put in $100 maybe 10 years ago, you would have made, I don't know, 2 pennies in interest. Like, congratulations, you made 2 pennies, but you also lost a ton of value because of inflation. Because interest rates just can't keep up with inflation, and so putting all your money in the bank just isn't worth it like it used to be. And so, while consumer products get a lot of flack, you know, people tend to criticize them and overspending, it is good for the economy. And one good case study that I think shows this is Silly Putty. You know, it's one of the most pointless things you can own. It is like Play-Doh and a little plastic egg. Like, who would ever need that? But it's been wildly successful, and not just successful for consumers, but also for the world. Like the United States, when it was in the Cold War between the Soviet Union, the United States embraced a system of capitalism, while the Soviet Union, we all know, had a communist system that relied on a government-planned economy. So while the Soviets were struggling to produce basic goods, the US was making things that were totally pointless and that they didn't even need just because they could. And that is the type of economic system that won the US the Cold War and allowed the capitalists to take victory. And so you might be thinking, but wouldn't constant consumer spending and over-speculation lead to a huge economic collapse like in the Great Depression? And the answer is, yeah, that's possible. And it did happen, but not this time, because now we have much more regulated markets, and it's much easier for people to conduct research, to actually know what they're investing in, and to be smart about it. So please, you know, try and invest your money, but you need to be smart about it. And so, okay, that's wrong, but anyway. So, in conclusion, You know, you might also think, well, I don't have hundreds or thousands of dollars to just throw into some market and potentially lose it. I'm not in that financial position. And to that, I would say, yes, you are. Yeah, you can do that. You know why? Because you don't even need hundreds or thousands of dollars. You can just put in $1, buy a couple penny stocks, and see how you do. I mean, I invested in some really strange penny stocks, like Canadian gold prospectors in the Arctic Circle. And, you know, it didn't work out for me very well. It was very risky. But with every stock I bought, I learned something, and that was the big takeaway for me. So even if you have $1, throw it in, see what you can do with it, and don't be a boring kid on Christmas who just puts all of his money into the bank and doesn't do anything. I mean, first of all, it's just not fun, and also it's not very financially smart. So, you know, take a risk, throw some dice, and see what you can do. Thank you.